Let me introduce to you Marshall Masters.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being with us again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
Yes. Remember all those shows we did together?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I must say, you must by now have enough survival beans to last you for decades.
Touche. My strategy really on survival right now, because I work real heavily with folks that are in awareness.
Right.
A lot of people who come to this topic have actually been in awareness since they were children. And a lot of folks don't realize that. And so for them, the real complaint that they have is they go, here I am, I'm in awareness, I understand everything that's coming. I cannot afford beans, bullets, and bunkers, so what's the point of my awareness? And, they're taking a material view of it. And what I have really come to understand is that the people who are in awareness about what is coming have a very special role, that being teachers, mentors, and comforters. And so the strategy has been more about helping people to understand you need to be worth your weight in beans. That is how you're going to best ensure your own survival, but also to do so in a meaningful way in service to others.
All right. Well, we've gotten a long ways from the simplicity of my grandparents and their lifestyle. For many people nowadays, life is just a constant struggle to keep up with their many obligations.
Yeah.
How much time do you have to devote to worrying about a catastrophe in the future?
Well, it's what I do 24/7. So that's my life.
Well, that's why we have you, Marshall. You worry for us all. You're like our Jewish grandmother.
Okay.
You're a Jewish grandmother. You worry for us all, so we don't have to. And then we just check in every once in a while. You give us the latest on, how much Kleenex we need and toilet paper we need to stock up. That's where my biggest worry is.
There you go. Well,
I mean, forget about the gold. Just stock up a garage full of toilet paper.
That really is, no joking aside, that is a really critical survival issue. It's amazing how many people, they've been saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm buying this, and I'm doing this other thing, and I just simply say, have you thought about how you're going to wipe your tuchus for 10 years?
Exactly. Now, toilet paper is going to be a hot commodity, and you'll probably be able to get a few beans and whatever else you need for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't rot very fast either,
Yeah, I'll trade you 3 cigarettes for a toilet roll.
Well, here in the United States, now we have these marijuana dispensaries. I think those will probably be the first things looted.
Oh, yeah. It kind of be a shame because marijuana will be a very useful thing.
Absolutely.
In tribulation, modern medicine as we know it has a 3-day lifespan, 3 to 5 days, because after 3 to 5 days, all of the diesel fuel in the emergency bunkers at the hospital is gone. And once the hospitals go dark, modern medicine as we know it is over. And from there, it's catch as catch can. And so people you would want to have in your community is, to be blunt, you'd want to have a good chemist who knows how to make things like ether, okay? Someone who understands how to take opium poppy seeds and turn them into, something that can be used as pain sedative.
Mm-hmm.
In some respects, we're going to go back to what medicine was around, the 1900s.
Well, I mean, that's if something dastardly should occur.
Yeah, well, that's what we're saying.
I know you've got your money on that horse, but I've got my money on another horse that it's not going to happen. But I'm always interested. Seriously, back in the, 1800s when the lights went out?
The Carrington event? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit for our listeners who might not be familiar with that event.
Well, the Carrington event is very appropriate to our times. I mean, you've heard Obama talking about EMP threat. That's a real problem. The Carrington event was a solar storm, and at the time it hit, electricity was in its infancy, and the telegraph systems were about 5 years old at that point, both in the United States and Europe. And the Carrington event hit, and particularly in the long lines That's where your biggest vulnerability is. This caused arcing, sparks, and that set off a whole raft of fires. Also,
all right, now, what caused the Carrington event again?
That was a solar storm, coronal mass ejection.
Just a coronal mass injection. Right. I've heard about them a lot, but have we seen anything since that time on any high level?
Yes, as a matter of fact, a few years ago, the solar storm index always went up to X. That was the highest. But there was one a few years ago that was so large it went off the scale, and they had to create a new category, Y. The thing that you have to keep in mind is with solar storms, it's the three rules of premium real estate: location, location, location. In other words, is it Earth directed? Are we in the crosshairs? When that thing pops up, does it pop off in our direction coming straight at us? If it does, it can be pretty brutal. And if we were to get hit with a solar storm that was Earth directed and something that would be an X or Y class, that would be enough to really take us down. And there's a concern here because in Canada, a few decades ago, there was a solar storm that took thousands of homes off of the grid. It caused a lot of problems. And that was one of the reasons why the SOHO satellite was first put up as a solar observatory in space. And
now, what year was that in Canada? Do you recall?
I would have to look that up.
Was it like in the 80s or 70s?
Like, yeah. And that was a storm that really woke up everybody. It was March 1989.
Okay.
Geomagnetic storm. Now, as a result of that, then there was a big effort to start observing the sun more carefully. For many years, there was just one solar observatory satellite out there doing the job. Now there's a whole constellation. I mean, back a few years ago, the major space agencies all across the world launched several different satellite solar observatories up there. So right now they're in a position to see the sniffle before the sneeze, so to speak.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, when you say several, what do you mean by several? How many?
Last count, I think there's about 6 or 7, and those are the ones that are being reported, including JAXA, ESA, Russia, the United States. So those are, several that are up there.
They must be seeing a lot of extraterrestrial craft with those things.
Boy, we see a lot of reports coming in all the time of UFOs being sighted, from the International Space Station, from SOHO, from anything else. But on the other hand, you got to remember a lot of these feeds that you get, these live feeds coming off, they're pretty well filtered and screened before they go public.
That's what I was thinking. And very little gets through that they don't want to get through.
Absolutely.
So we were talking about that before you came on today, about this Orwellian surveillance system that's set up right now. I just got 2 little tiny tickets, okay? One for going 7 miles over and one for, they say, entering the intersection a little too late. But there's probably nobody there anyway, right? Mm-hmm. And so I got a red light ticket and a little 7 mile over one. I want you to know that was $600. And very severe penalties and points. We have points here in Arizona, a point system that's insane. I want to know, what do you think of that? What do you think of the surveillance system that's in force nowadays that's just encroaching upon us all?
You ain't seen nothing yet. Okay. I'm serious. You haven't. The next big thing that's going to happen, and this is not far off, is that you're going to see like AT&T and Comcast and these other major service providers, internet service providers, and now you get in your home, you get a modem. The modem connects to a router, and the router handles all your devices in the home.
Right.
Well, the company that's providing the service, all they see is just your modem, that IP address. What the next step is going to be is that they're going to take over the role of the router in the house, so that they're going to actually see everything going on inside your home network, because they will be your home network.
So in other words, they'll know what temperature your refrigerator is.
anything that's web-enabled, so Energy Star appliances, absolutely. Right. You start taking and combining this information with what they're getting off of the e-meter on the side of your house. I'll tell you, the only thing I haven't seen them planning to do is install toilet seat webcams so that they can tell America, we have enough fiber in our diet. I wouldn't put it past.
That's next. They're going to be at Home Depot next week.
That's right. It's
commode cams.
There you go. And it's like, all of a sudden you're going to get a letter in the mail.
Please install this, or we'll come over and do it for you.
That's right. And by the way, here's a citation with a whopping fine.
Because your pollution level's too high. Mm-hmm. All right. So anything could happen at any time. I mean, I got the point, Kara, from what you're telling us. There could be some kind of mishap of some kind that upsets this planet to the point where we can't rely upon our services.
Right.
Now, and what would all of you out there who are listening do if that were to happen? What would you guys do? Would you just go, I know what I would do. I'd be like, how long is this going to be out? How much do I have to ration? I wouldn't be the kind who would even leave my home because I would figure there's no place that's going to be more comfortable. And, what about that? I'll tell you, my biggest fear is nuclear explosion from a nuclear power plant. A nuclear power plant explosion. And we have a huge one here that I protested being built before it was built. And that was a fiasco. All the police were there stun gunning all these people who were not even doing anything. They were just standing there. They were stun gunning them. Unbelievable. I never saw such a show of force before by police officers. And, of course, if we go into a survival mode, that show of force by police officers is going to increase dramatically. I was there during the Detroit riots when they started burning down Detroit. And I'll tell you, the first thing that came out was the National Guard with their machine guns. And they started riding up and down the streets in full regalia with their machine guns pointed right at your head. And like that. See if you like that.
Yep. That'll get your attention.
Oh, baby. It gets your attention big time. And, I was on my way. I had a store in Detroit when it happened. A liquor store that had only been open 6 days. It was fully stocked with all brand new merchandise. It wasn't my idea to get this liquor store. It was my boyfriend's, who I wound up marrying. And anyway, so he bought it. He didn't even have a chance to draw a check, so he couldn't even get business interruption because he was only open 6 days. So what happened was he closed up the store, and we waited at a restaurant in the burbs listening to the news and watching the news, trying to figure out what was going on, talking to all the police officers in the suburbs and everything. And they were telling us Detroit was on fire. That was just because some people were upset. Can you imagine if they didn't get any food? What that would look like? My goodness.
Well, there's going to be what I call the rage that's going to come. People are going to realize they're going to be standing up out in the street. They're going to be pointing up the sky, looking at the Planet X system coming in, and they're going to be saying, hey, you ever seen anything like that? No, Harry, never have.
So you think we're going to actually see this Planet X system coming in soon?
Yeah. Well, I'm posting images of it. And so, but it's also like ufology. You can have mountains and mountains of evidence, and people are still going to go, well, I don't know about that. So that's just the way it is.
What are the pictures showing you?
Pardon?
What are the pictures that you're talking about showing to you? What are they telling you?
On our what it's telling me is the Planet X system is coming closer. If you, on our website, yowza.com, or you can also go to marshallmasters.com, we have pictures I just put up that were taken from Germany at altitude. We call it Planet X Double Trouble. We saw 2 of the objects and verified it. They're natural objects, and there's nothing in the field of view that was cataloged. This system is on the opposite side of the sun. Mm-hmm. But also, we just published an article called Planet X Signs Update Number 5. We do these on a routine basis. This article it was really depressing for us Jennifer Burns put it up, and it took her a solid week. And
all right, so tell us about it.
Well, what we're seeing just all over the place.
What do you mean by all over the place?
All over the world. This is global. Increase in volcanoes, particularly along the Rim of Fire. Disruptions of air travel and air cargo. There's just on the one that is really caught our attention was Mount Sakajima, and that popped on the 5th. We have Momotomo volcano, Kolma, the Sheveluch in Siberia, Cinnabung, Charpaturistique, and Mount Ergon. These are currently erupting. I mean, this information is just since the beginning of the year. Earthquakes have picked up tremendously. One of the things that we find is that the earthquakes are always being downgraded.
Yes. And yet, did you know about that when they changed the Richter scale?
Well,
they changed the Richter scale in the 80s, in the early 80s, downgrading it a whole point.
Right. But now what they've done is not only downgraded it, but the other thing that they've done is they say, well, we went in and found all kinds of reasons to downgrade these reports that are coming in from other parts of the world, other countries. They're not downgrading this information. We're the ones that's doing it. But there's a very specific reason for it, and here's how the disinformation flies out.
Okay.
Is that what they'll say is there's been a decrease in major earthquake events, and they say from Cat 5, from 5.0 and above, all right, on the Richter scale. Well, if you look and see how they downgrade these events, they'll take a 5, a 5.1, a 5.2, and downgrade it to a 4.8 or a 4.9. This is what they do continually. They push them out of the 5s down into the 4s. So if that way, when I've seen them publish articles and they go, seismicity is decreasing, they say order of magnitude, the Richter scale 5.0 and above.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you've been modifying the data with downgrades and playing around with it, and keep in mind, our government does not report all of the earthquakes in the world that other governments are reporting. All
really?
Right? So, yes.
Why? An agenda, you think, to keep that information away from the American public? Did you get that? We're going to give it out again. Get out your pen and paper. Go ahead and give it again.
YOWUSA.com, or just my name, MarshallMasters.com, and that's with 2 L's.
Very good. All right. So, Bill, you had a question for Marshall here, or you have something you want to talk about?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Marshall, you sent me some links. I checked out the links. And there are mainly some videos and some articles you posted on your website. Now, one of the videos talked about, this September 2015, it was like a non-event event. And I was wondering what the significance of that, was all about.
Well, that went back to the blood moon tetrad theory.
Right.
And that was something that came out of nowhere and really swept through the Christian community particularly, and it brought a whole new audience to the topic of Planet X because it was all focused on blood moon tetrad theory.
And, I'm not catching the word you're saying.
Blood moon tetrad theory.
Blood moon tetrad?
Tetrad theory.
What's a tetrad?
Well, this is red moons.
Oh.
Right, and that are timed with Jewish holidays, high holidays. So it was something where there was the position that was put out that when these events happened, when we'd see a blood moon that coinciding with some sort of Jewish holiday, there would be a catastrophic event or the beginning of a catastrophic event. And when that first came out, our position on it was coincidental. We didn't see the direct relationship. What I was talking about in the video was that in September there was the blood moon tetrad theory, there was also the Pope's visit, and CERN was being fired up again. And so one of the things that we see with disinformation management is that disinformationists will look for public concerns, and then what they do is echo them turn up the volume on them, so that it draws a lot of people into essentially what's going to be a non-event. So then you have the non-event, and people go, oh boy, I got suckered in on that one.
Right.
And what are they going to do?
And you don't know what you're talking about.
That's right. And you've already, humiliated yourself with family and friends, and they've been telling you it's all nonsense, don't want to hear about it, nothing's going to happen. And so what happens is they become right, you become wrong. That doesn't mean your concern's not justified.
Right.
All right. And a blood moon tetrad theory is something that really is an early harbinger that would relate to something much further downstream. With CERN, I think that's definitely a concern when one of the men who did the theoretical basis, the underpinning of CERN, said they don't know what the F blink that they're doing. And they are really, they're wielding some immense power there. Then there was the Pope's visit, and that was, the only result of the Pope's visit was, maybe someone should suggest to the Pope to get a new speechwriter. And other than that, that month was just, we watched a whole lot of interest, a lot of people getting stampeded, all right, and that's what we call them, stampedes. And they get stampeded down these pointless rabbit holes, and then they feel humiliated, and they walk away, and they stop looking. They stop thinking. They stop questioning. And that's what's really important. Awareness is something that cannot be prevented. People become aware on an individual basis because they're looking at something and they're asking that one fateful question. What exactly am I seeing here? All right? And that's the first step to awareness. So the elites who control the media do a superb job of ignoring what they can't stop, which is awareness. They focus on consensus. That's what they don't want. You have enough people come into consensus. Now you have a movement. You have to deal with it. All right. So if they can conquer and divide, create dissension, humiliation, fracture the conversations, prevent consensus, it's, it all goes nowhere.
Now, Marshall.
And that's what they do. They do it, do it very, very excellently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I can step in here.
Give the devil his due.
Now, this date, September 2015, I remember talking about that years ago. There's a number of news articles that one here, end of the world postponed. Mayan scholars have updated their doomsday prophecy. Now, this report here was posted back in October 20th, 2010, that they made an error with the Mayan calendar, did not end in December of 2012. They redid the math on that at the Scripps Institute, and they found out that the end date was actually September 3rd, 2015. And then there's this other report here about a Hebrew calendar. This Jonathan Kahn is his name, and he wrote a book called The Harbinger, and he put a date. This was back in 2012, and I remember talking about this on the air. He wrote this book called The Harbinger, predicting financial calamity in September of 2015. So this date of September 2015 has been rolled around for a number of years here.
It has been, but I will tell you the first rule of prophecy and predictions is to be aware of it, but do not live in expectation of it.
Right.
Like Yoda said, the future is uncertain. Always in motion is the future. And timelines shift, things will change. So it's literally about being aware. Frankly, in what I do, and on my research effort, people always say, date, date, date. What's the date? What's the date? What's the date? What's the date? And what I have learned is the fastest way to make people go back into their shells, stop thinking, stop preparing, stop planning, give them a date that they can put on the calendar. And then what they do is they look at the billing cycles on their credit cards, figure out an optimal time to go to Costco and clear out the card, clear out the shelves, and then they feel like, okay, no problem. I've got it solved, and they stop doing what they need to be doing and looking and listening. Likewise, another question I get from people all the time is, when am I going to see Planet X with my own two eyes? Now, what I tell them is that question is as dumb as a sack of hammers, because the right question is, when will I believe that what I am seeing with my own two eyes is a clear and present danger? You see, even when the Planet X system becomes visible, what people are going to hear from the government is it's just an interesting light show, don't worry about it. Might be a few little trifles, but don't worry about it.
Right.
And people are going to buy it because people cling to the bliss of ignorance like jealous lovers.
Now, when do you think the visibility is going to be more than it is today?
Yes, I mean, the trends are, I mean, we are getting more observation reports from people at this time than ever before.
That this is a huge planet coming in, is that what you're saying?
Right, that's right.
And now,
actually,
does it have
it's a mini constellation. It's a brown dwarf with planets and moons.
Mm-hmm. Now, Marshall.
We're talking about the brown dwarf, right?
Planet X.
Yeah.
Okay, now there's a couple of news articles that I have here, and they were posted just a few months ago, right around November, December time frame. And it says here that the Pope says this may be our last Christmas. The Queen's Christmas message, enjoy your final Christmas. What is going on here? What do they know that we don't?
Well, you know, we saw those come out. What was interesting to me was both of those traced back. It was single source articles coming out of the same tabloid in England.
Mm.
And so my first impression was I would have wanted to see multiple sources reporting on this.
Yes.
All right. So we're talking about a black op little scare tactic.
It could be the real McCoy. It could be a black op. It could be any number of things. Remember, the elites they have an obligation to share knowledge. It could be a structured leak.
Right.
And the thing here is what we're seeing on the big scale is we see a wide range of things happening around the world that are very disturbing. I mean, if you read this article, and it's a long article, it's like 14 pages, Planet X Sign, update number 5, it's on our site right now. It's encyclopedic. It really takes you from alpha to omega, trip around the world of all of the weird things that are happening. And there are, when you look at it in totality, it is stunning. And what you realize is
now, where did you say to go to see this?
This is my site, YOWUSA.com, MarshallMasters.com. This is the first article up there. It's Planet X Signs, update number 5. We just posted that on the 6th. Mm-hmm. If you go and you read that article, what you're going to realize is that there's a lot of very unsettling things happening around the world, very abnormal things.
Mm-hmm. What do you attribute all that to?
Well, we're attributing this to the approach of this Planet X system that is interacting with our sun, but we're also passing through a region of the solar system where we're also getting hammered with the galactic superwave coming from the center of our galaxy.
Now let's talk about the galactic superwave.
That's Paul LaViolette talks about that quite a bit.
Paul LaViolette, yes. And Paul, I was lucky enough to interview Paul years ago. He doesn't want to give interviews now.
Yes, I noticed that.
There's a lot of people really don't understand how much suppression and manipulation in this there is. Okay.
All right, let's talk about this galactic superwave.
Okay. What the galactic superwave is, what Paul LaViolette is talking about is that when we pass through, what the Mayans were looking to see is if we were going to pass through the horizon, if you will, the center of the galaxy. All right? And when you pass through that, there's energy waves that are emanating from the center of the galaxy. And we're flying through that. And that's causing a lot of problems. And what Paul LaViolette noticed was that young suns that are large, bright young suns that are highly unstable, they tend to supernova more often in this region of space than not. Mm. And so we are passing through this region of space. Now, the thing that, with the Mayan calendar, and you brought that up earlier, and I remember back in 2012, it was August of 2012, I was interviewed by National Geographic, and the producer asked me, he said, do you see a direct correlation between the Mayan calendar and Planet X. Well, at the time I said, no, I don't see anything. It's coincidental. We don't, because I just go off the empirical data. I'm looking for evidence, all right? You see in our articles, we are tracking good local news sites with the stories that you're finding that are reported on local level. Excellent journalism. When it goes up in the mainstream, it gets into the field of dismissive propaganda and manipulation of the stories. But if you go back to the original local reporting, phenomenal. And so we're seeing these patterns, all of this cover-up. And the thing about Planet X and 2012 was a date-driven event that was a massive expectation stampede. And we were looking for empirical data, and the only numbers you could find were in the Arbitron rankings for the cable networks that they were making a fortune, all right? But we couldn't find anything else. Now, what we did do was we started reporting. Well, we reported in an article on this, and actually we do have an article about the Mayans. And what we found was that the Mayans weren't looking for something in the sky to tell them that they were already in a catastrophe. What's the point? You're looking for a harbinger sign, something that's going to give you enough time to, take a 7 lean cows, 7 fat cows kind of approach to stockpiling and preparing for a difficult time. That's what they were looking for. And when we started looking at the post-December 21, 2012 empirical data for meteors and for earthquakes, we were stunned. Because right after December 21, 2012, you had this, gradually rising trend that just took off. It kind of reminds you of, Roadrunner and Coyote, the Acme rockets, boom, straight up. And it just took off like Acme rockets. And since December 21, 2012, we have seen, it's just mind-boggling what's happening and all of the things that we're seeing. And it's, like I said, if your listeners read this article, they're going to see that. And what you're going to see is that evidence of how this knowledge is being withheld from people. So the real question, folks, is why all of the propaganda, why all the disinformation, why all the suppression?
Now, in Russia, didn't they build underground facilities for their populace?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Russians are building underground shelters like crazy. Other countries are even far ahead of them. Sweden has enough underground capacity for all of its citizens.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the United Nations paid for a lot of that, by the way.
Unbelievable.
So
we're paying for it, you mean?
Yeah, we're paying for it. So what's happening here in the United States? Well, they're not building bunkers for us. What they're doing is they bought 1.8 billion rounds of small arms hollow point ammunition.
To blow our brains out.
Absolutely. And so when the time comes for what I call the rage, people are going to realize they've been had, and it's too late. And then they're going to make up all kinds of signs and placards and march down to the federal buildings and start, we're citizens and all this righteous indignation. And the police are going to come out in their MRAPs and with their machine guns and their military outfits. And you see, the thing of it is soldiers cannot carry hollow point ammunition, but peace officers can. And so they're just going to say, all right, dismiss, and then they don't dismiss, and they'll ask them a second time. They don't. The crowd will be, going and jeering all of that, and then they'll just open fire, and there are going to be bodies.
What is a hollow point bullet? What is the difference?
A hollow point bullet is a dum-dum slug. That's a term that was used. Hunters are, if you have a standard military round, it's a full metal jacket. All right, so it's a completely sealed projectile. A hollow point is opened at the front, has a small hole.
Well, what is the point between the two? The difference?
When you get hit with a full metal jacket, it'll just go through you. All right? It's like a little rocket, if you will.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if you're using a dum-dum slug, all right, a hollow point, it hits, it expands, it mushrooms out, and it just starts tearing everything apart.
Ah.
And so if you get hit with a hollow point, it's going to cause severe, severe damage. Much more damage.
My God.
And what this will be is like another Kent state. Remember, I'm old enough to remember with Kent State. As a matter of fact, I was in the National Guard.
Well, my friends were down there, a lot of them. I'm from Detroit.
Right. Okay. So, what did they do? All of those anti-war riots were really, creating a lot of grief for the government. So they set up a situation. They put National Guardsmen out there who were in no way trained with M14s, 30-06 rounds. Okay. And this is a deer gun, basically a semi-automatic deer rifle. And so they, put in some provocateurs, whatever, trigger it. These guys start firing volleys, and kids are dying.
That's right. And everyone went home and never came back out again.
Exactly.
It had the desired effect.
Okay, Marshall,
So,
I have
let's do it again. Huh?
Yes, I have one more item here I'd like to talk about before we end the show today, because we would like to have you back, because we do have a lot more to talk about. And
Sure.
This is an incredible subject.
Absolutely.
Incredible. And it's so fascinating. Okay, now, the one thing that I wanted to cover here before we end the show is this Google Earth. It's Google Sky. They uncovered an area that they had blacked out, and they gave the coordinates of this star. It looks like a winged star, and it's at coordinates 5 hours, 42 minutes, 21 seconds, 22 degrees, 36 minutes, 44 seconds. That's the coordinates on Google Sky, what looks like a winged star. Right. Do you have any thoughts about this? What are we looking at here?
We published an article on that. That was actually a very, very effective disinformation scam that was run on the public. And if you go back and you read our article, let me get that title for the article for you.
All right, we got 1 minute left here, Marshall, and then we're going to have to say toodaloo.
We're